I actually forgot to tell you when I was last at Mass 2 weeks ago that I'd be going on a retreat. But that's just where I've got back from. So once a year, priests are required to go on a 5-day or a week-long retreat in order to recharge, to reflect, to pray, and to recommit to the Lord. I like to do it around this time of year. It's kind of like just before Advent, just to get ready for Christmas. And I like the place where I go as well. I kind of like it when it's dark and silent. During the summer, there are too many people about. But when you go in the winter, it's cold in the north of Scotland, and that's where I go. So only the hardcore are there. So I go to a monastery, a Benedictine monastery called Plusgarden Abbey. And the monks there are very, very strict. They're up at 4 o'clock every morning. And they go to vigil prayers at 4:30 in the morning. And I first went there about 6 or 7 years ago. And immediately I was hooked. Because they come in, they process in with their sort of, looking up to heaven. And they sit round the corner so you can't see them. And they sing this Latin plain chant. I'll demonstrate it a bit. It's like, oh, that kind of thing. So here's a picture of the abbey. Look at it. It's beautiful, isn't it? And here's the monks. Most of them actually, who are there are in this picture. And so I go there, and when you're not a monk, you have to sit around the sides. So you can't actually see the monks. All you hear is these voices, and they're like angelic voices, just raising up to heaven. And you close your eyes, and you feel like you could be in heaven itself. But I was always curious. I was trying to get my head around. I was like, no, it's not happening. I just can't do it. And about 4 years ago, I decided to go on the retreat in my cassock. You know, cassock, the thing the priest wears, the black robe, all the way down. I thought, I'm going to go with minimal, just religious clothing, just to focus my mind on the Lord. Just that little help. And so I'm sitting down with all the other people who go to the prayers. And one of the monks walks in. He sees me and he goes... So I get up and he says, follow me. Apparently, when you're a priest dressed in the cassock, you're allowed to sit with the monks and pray. So bear in mind, this was the image I had of the monks when I couldn't see them. But then, having got a chance to sit with them, it was very, very different. I don't have a picture for the kind of stuff they get up to. But you're sitting there, you're praying with them, trying to follow the prayers, and you see them picking their nose and scratching their bum and yawning because they're tired, right? Yeah, all these things. And this week I saw something new. One of the monks messed up his lines. Now, no one would have noticed, but they noticed, and they were all like, check him out, all laughing at each other. Another monk cut the other monk off while he was singing. So somehow, while he's singing, so he's sort of, oh, la, la, and he's going like, but he's still singing, these beautiful words, but he's like, oh, that kind of thing. It was great. It was absolutely brilliant, because when I couldn't see them, I only saw half the story. I heard the voices, and I had my impression, my image of what the monks were like. And it was beautiful. It fed my soul, But having got to sit among them, I realized that they're human beings too. And they're funny, they're humorous, they're not kind of cardboard cut-out saints or anything like that. They're just like you and me. And it was great. And it fed me in a new way. It fed the whole of me, my body and soul. So it's really a beautiful thing to be a part of. So now every year I go in my cassock looking forward to sitting with the monks and realizing it's okay to yawn and burp as well because they do it too. Yeah. So in today's gospel, Jesus tells us to watch yourselves. To watch yourselves. That's the command of Advent. When we watch ourselves, we get a bigger picture of who we are. We begin to see more of what God sees and what God loves. Now, sitting around the corner, I could see half the story of the monks, and when I completed it, it was lovely. But if I'd have just seen the nose picking and bum scratching, I might have been like, ooh, I'm not too sure. But when you put the two things together, it's lovely. Jesus tells us to watch ourselves, for the day is coming. Now, this day seems a bit strange because, if I got this right, Jesus says, watch yourselves, or that day will spring on you suddenly, the second coming, like a trap. So it's a bit scary. And yet, in the first reading, in the prophet Jeremiah, it describes it like this. In those days, I will make a virtuous branch grow for David, who shall practice honesty and integrity in the land. So it's a day of honesty and integrity, but also it's a day that Jesus describes like this: a day of people dying of fear as they await what menaces the world. So how do those two things go together? A day of honesty and integrity, and a day of menace. People dying of fear. Well, let's ask ourselves, what's honesty, really? Let's ask ourselves that question. I had an honest picture of the monks when I saw both sides. How many of us here would describe ourselves as dishonest? No, of course not, because no one's like a dishonest person through and through, are they? Now, we can all admit that we have dishonest moments, right? Yeah, okay, just those little like, you're coming out tonight, oh, I feel sick, when really you're just watching Strictly. Do you know what I mean? We've all dropped those little clangers. So we have dishonest moments, but by and large, we like to think, and it's true, I think, that what we see ourselves at is what we try to show to other people. Yeah? But I'll give you just a silly example. A couple of weeks ago, an acquaintance who I have comes back after a long time of away. And when you haven't seen someone for a while, you notice all the little changes, don't you? Like, for example, 3 months ago, I didn't have a beard. So he could have said, oh, Father James, you've got a beard. You didn't have a beard the last time I saw you. But what did he say? He was very honest. He said, Father James, you're getting fat. So, how did I take this news? Was I honest in my response? No, not necessarily at all. Because if I'd have been honest in my response, someone would have been dying of fear as they awaited the menace of my fist. Yeah? That would have been, like, that was what I wanted to do. I was like, I thought I was losing weight. I wasn't, apparently. So, I didn't give him my honest response. I did something like this. Hey, like pat him on the shoulder. Yeah, so funny. Yeah, you. Anyway, bye now. Bye. So I wasn't honest, was I? But, those are the times when we're dishonest. But the honest response was still there. It got put somewhere else. I had to lock it up in a little darkened chamber of low self-esteem, a poor body image, all that kind of stuff. Add it to the collection, and then keep smiling throughout the day. The day of honesty is one where we're able to bring all of those things out and hold them in the light of the Lord. Because the thing is, if we're not able to do that, all that stuff that gets locked down there can actually have unintended consequences for other people. For example, now, when I got back home from that, having heard these words ring in my ear, I was probably super sensitive to everything everyone else said. Father James, you look, what, am I fat? Do you know what I mean? And then I start a fight with that person, even though they didn't say anything. So it has a knock-on effect, and it can go quite deep. It can go very, very deep. Now, where is he? Does anyone recognize this guy? Men, my age, roughly? No? Jake the Snake Roberts. Who remembers Jake the Snake Roberts? Yeah. There you go, wrestler in the 90s, WWE. We call it WWE now, but if you're old school, you remember it's called WWF. Yeah. So Jake the Snake Roberts was one of the biggest WWE wrestlers in the 80s and 90s. Very popular. You all right? Yeah. Very, very popular. Oh, you're scared of snakes. Okay, let's go back. Okay. Sorry. So, Jake the Snake Roberts was one of the bad guys, but he was super popular because he carried this snake around. It was like, oh, Jake the Snake. Very entertaining, and seemed to have the world at his feet. Millions of pounds, all those kinds of things. And yet, he was a bad man. He was destroying people's lives all around him. Because from the age of 12, he started to develop an alcohol addiction, became an alcoholic, and he became a cocaine addict. And slowly but surely, that lifestyle destroyed the wives of his partners, of his wives, of his children, of his grandchildren. He ruined the lives of all people around them as he was destroying his own. And yet he was just being himself, right? He was just being himself. It was only when all of that stuff which got locked up couldn't be held under lock and key any longer, and he hit rock bottom, absolute rock bottom. And then someone reached out to him. It was only 4 or 5 years ago. Reached out to him and helped him to face all of the darkness, all of that stuff which had caused him to lead the life that he'd led. In fact, and this is horrible, he'd been abused by his own parents at a very early age, and it stayed in there. But in order to survive, what did he do? He locked it up. He locked it up and didn't reveal it. And alcohol and drugs were his way of keeping it locked up so he could survive. But Jesus doesn't want us just to survive, does he? He wants us to thrive. And that's why he calls on us to bring all things out to him so his light can be shone on all of it. There was nothing wrong with Jake the snake, the small boy. He was perfect and God loved him. But he had to hide him because of what happened. And Jesus says, bring it out. Bring it out to my tender love, where there will be mercy and not judgment. Where I will embrace you and teach you to embrace all of yourself as well. That leads us on to the second word, because I'll get past it quickly. So, Jesus, or rather in the first reading, describes that day as a day of honesty and integrity. Now we must say, what does this integrity mean? Well, I'm going to use Italian here to help out, because in Italian, we call it brown bread, is pane integrale, integrity, which means wholeness or whole meal. So whole meal bread is bread with none of the good stuff taken out. So all of the good stuff is in there. You know that white bread you get, the white bread that we enjoy? Okay, we enjoy it, but the real good stuff is the brown bread. It's good for you. Integrity leads to wholeness, and wholeness leads to holiness, where we get to experience all of ourselves as God loves us and God knows us. And so that command of Jesus to watch yourselves, during this Advent season, let's take time to prepare. We've got our reconciliation service on Tuesday the 18th of December at 7:30. There'll be 6 or 7 priests here, because, whenever Father James says go to confession, you'll be like, yeah, not to you. Okay? So there'll be other priests here to your confession. And let's prepare for that by following the command of Jesus. To actually say to ourselves, okay, well, I'm going to take the scary journey. Okay, because it can be a scary journey when we haven't confronted things, or we don't ask the question of ourselves, or we don't watch. It's that day of menace, isn't it? But ask ourselves, we've all got some, things that make us angry inside, things that cause us to, lash out, or whatever it is, or broken relationships. Begin to ask the question, observe it, and ask yourself, why do I do that? Why do I respond in that way? Why did I hurt that person in that way? How come what they said hurt me? What knock-on effect did it have? Look for them. Watch, so that you can actually bring them out and bring them to Jesus. That's what confession is. Now, we don't come to confession with anything that Jesus doesn't know, do we? He knows all of it. He knows the person that you see, but he also knows the person that you don't. The person who's in the locker. And he says, bring it out. Confess it so that you may see it too, and see that I love all of you and not just your representative, the person you present to the world. And I think if we do that, if we make that our practice of Advent, if we're able to make a good confession, because that's what it is, bringing all these things out to the Lord for him to shower us with his love, we'll be able to do what it says in the last reading. Oh, I lost it. We'll be able to do what it says in the last reading, which is to stand up, to hold our heads up high in that day before the Lord in joy. Amen.